Hello again, everybody, and Ben, as always, thank you for having me on. This is going to be a wrap of Week 14, Round 14 in the AFL, and a preview of Round 15. So round 14 was a short week, 7 games, 4 teams on the bye. 4 teams on the bye for round 14 were Collingwood, Richmond, Sydney and Gold Coast. Now we're going to get straight into the first game of round 14. Round 14 begins with a trip down to Marvel Stadium for a match between St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs. This is a game where St Kilda, again, up and down all year this year. Been on very much a downturn of recent. Going to be another down week for them, unfortunately. They get blown out in this one in the second half. Bulldogs are winning this one 2012, 132. St Kilda 8-12, 60. This game, St Kilda never really, I thought they blew it out in the second half, but again, it was kind of a blowout from the start. St Kilda never really ever in this contest at any point. Bulldogs fully in control. We see the rise of play like Sam Darcy coming to the fore now as well for the Western Bulldogs. So they are a team who will be messed with if they can pick up the pieces and move into that top 8 spot and still some September football, which is something that with injuries going around to other clubs, I think that's something they can do. Something they can definitely do. St Kilda, I think it's time to close the book on them. Their season is more than over after another horrific week. The season this year, St Kilda are a team who we know they don't want to play on a Thursday night, but this is just not the way to go about it from my perspective. I think if you're scheduled on a Thursday night, you have to plan around. I know it's unfortunate you only be hosting games on a Thursday night. That's your club position, but okay, the club has to work into working Thursday night games as part of the AFL fixture. If you're given a Thursday night, you need to put on a much better effort than you did here. Western Bulldogs go into town, they do their business, looking to chase down finals. As I said, far more dominant in this game than St Kilda everywhere. Clean them up quite easily. Player of the game for this one on your Thursday night was Matt Kennedy from the Western Bulldogs. 107 AFL fantasy, 2 goals, 29 touches, 20 kicks, 9 handballs, 6 marks, 1 tackle for the Western Bulldogs, trade in from Carlton. Now we move straight into our Friday night game from Tasmania, and as I predicted, it was a Hawthorn win by a Tasmania, and it was a game where the Crows should have won. If it was at the MCG, I think the Crows win the game. If it was at Adelaide Oval, I think the Crows win the game. The game was in the Launceston University of Launceston Stadium, or University of Tasmania Stadium at Launceston, and the Hawks owning that ground now. Kangaroos moving out, playing their games in West Australia this year. Hawthorn move in and take full opportunity of any extra games they can get given down at Tasmania before the Devils do come in a couple of years' time. They get another win here. Final score in this one, Hawthorn 6-11-47, Adelaide 5-14-44. So both teams with negative scoreboards in the end there. So Hawthorn a 1-2 ratio, Adelaide closer to a 1-3 ratio. Even after a poor start, Crows really shut down in that second half. 2 goals first quarter, 2 goals second quarter from the Crows, then third quarter from the Crows, 4 points, and then final quarter from the Crows was 1 goal, 3. Hawthorn 2 points to start in the first quarter, then 2 goals, 2 goals, and 2 goals to go over the Crows with the collection of points as well. The 11 points getting them over the line in this one. So the Tasmania factor playing a huge impact there for Hawthorn as they win this one over the Crows, and a much needed win for the Hawks as they look to rebuild their September case. And Adelaide, bit of a loss, a bit of a shaky loss. The Crows moving down to fourth with that one. A win could have really propped them up quite nicely. The win could have propped them up into second, the Crows, but sliding to fourth there with that one. We go to my player of the game for this one, and I have to go with someone who was very impressive all night. It was Jarman Impey from Hawthorn. 121 AFL fantasy, 28 disposals, 19 kicks, 9 handballs, 10 marks, and 4 tackles for a Hawthorn veteran. Now we move straight into the action on Saturday, and we start up at the Gabba with Brisbane versus Greater Western Sydney in what was going to be a absolute scoreboard slugfest between these two sides. GWS bringing a really good record against Brisbane at the Gabba into this one. They do hold that record against them in this one in the end. Final scores here at the Gabba was GWS 17-5-107, Brisbane 13-18-96. So Brisbane a lot of scoreboard pressure, putting the pressure on GWS to score and to respond. But when GWS did respond, they responded well. Only 5 behind from 22 registered scores and a perfect 8-goal straight first half for GWS, even with Brisbane having a richer scoring line there with 19 shots, 19 registered scores to half-time, 9-10 at half-time. And the second half, we see GWS really continue that good run of form. They had another 4 goals in that third quarter, and another 5 in the final quarter with only 5 behinds kicked in the half. So 22 scoring shots with 5 behinds all game against 31 scoring shots with 18 of them being 1 points. It really tells the difference in how this game was played. GWS a lot more particular about their entries into 50 than Brisbane were. And that was the difference in the end. Brisbane, a team who I think both of these teams could be playing in September at this rate. GWS, this was a bit of a shock win. They were losing a couple of bodies, but they do get the win here. I think Brisbane will be fine. They just got to ride this out. This is a tough game from GWS at home. GWS, good matchup against Brisbane, and that's what gets them over the line here. Going to my player of the game, I'm going to go with Aaron Cadman from GWS. 122 AFL Fantasy, 5 goals, 19 touches, 15 kicks, 4 handballs, 13 marks, and 1 tackle. So well done on that line for Aaron Cadman. We now move to the second game of Saturday between the Essendon Bombers and the Geelong Cats. And Geelong were far and away too sexy for the Essendon Bombers on this occasion, winning by 95 points in the end. Essendon 88-56, Geelong 23-13. 151. Not really much to say apart from this was a real dismal performance from the Bombers. I think that they're a team who their numbers are starting to tell. This is what we could expect for them in the second half of the year. They're losing bodies one by one. They are losing bodies. They're losing numbers one by one every week. This is going to happen for the rest of the year for the Bombers. I think it's time we say it's season over for Essendon. Looking at the Cats, week as usual for them. Big week, big win. Every week is a big week when you're a team contending for a top 4 spot. Like the Cats are, they currently sit in second after jumping Brisbane and Adelaide, who had losses this week. With that being said though, this is a Geelong team who are going to be playing finals football, and they're going to be playing a lot of finals football. This is a Geelong team who are bringing in players to replace their old players such as Bailey Smith, who I'm going to get to in a minute as my player of the game. They're bringing in their younger guys. They're bringing in the Brad Closes, the Max Holmes, the Guthries, the Dempseys of the world, the Humphreys of the world, that are going to be the next generation of Geelong players. So, a lot to look forward to down at the Cattery. Going to my player of the game in this one, there really can be no argument about who it is. It's going to be Bailey Smith from Geelong. 136 AFL Fantasy this week, 41 touches, 28 kicks, 13 handballs, 7 marks and 2 tackles. Another strong week from Bailey Smith there. Moving to the Saturday night game for round 14. It is North Melbourne versus Fremantle. Again, this game was in Perth because North Melbourne bought out the rights to host that game in Perth from Fremantle. They were at Bunbury last week against West Coast, at Optus Stadium this week against Fremantle as the home side. Very, very tight game. In the end, Fremantle really should have put this one away a lot earlier. They were cruising. Fremantle cruising really well into the second quarter, into the third quarter. Fremantle were far and away the better side, leads near 20-30 points throughout that game. Then North stormed back and nearly take this one, losing by a goal in the end. 10-7-67 for North Melbourne. Fremantle 10-13-73. Your winners by 6 points. And it was those 6 behinds, that early scoreboard pressure that Fremantle put on. And it tells, especially in that first half when you're going 3-1, 2-5, and then 1 goal and 5 goal in the second quarter for Fremantle. Those early behinds really helped them out in the end, get over the line in this one. But North Melbourne, a team who could be very, very dominant for years to come. We're starting to be showing glimpses of what North Melbourne is going to be all about in the next couple of years. Look out, 26, 27, 28. North Melbourne are a team on the rise. But unfortunately, just lost this week for them. You know, I can't criticise them. This was a great comeback effort from them. North nearly pulled it off. North, again, so close in this effort against Fremantle. Fremantle, you know, really disappointing to only beat North by a goal in the end when you were cruising at 5 goal up, entering the final quarter and letting North come back. So, if you see this from a Fremantle perspective, sure it's a win, but I wouldn't really classify it as a win apart from getting 4 premiership points on the board. If I look at it from a North Melbourne perspective, sure, it's a loss, but it's a big win to close on a team who are supposed to be real contenders in Fremantle this year. Player of the game for this one, it's going to be from Fremantle. It's going to be Caleb Sarong, 146 AFL Fantasy, 1 goal, 36 touches, 19 kicks, 17 handballs, 2 marks and 10 tackles for a triple-double here on the BJ Footy Show. So well done to Caleb Sarong on that effort. Now we jump into the Sunday action. 2 games today, starting off at the Adelaide Oval with Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. Port Adelaide, again, coming in very shaky first half of the year for them. Should have been probably a lot better apart from the injuries they've had throughout the season. They've limited their list availability and their numbers. Melbourne, again, a very much on-form team throughout most of the year. Unfortunate results not going their way in the first half of the season. But this was a game where I think Melbourne really could have capitalised and taken down Port Adelaide. They don't get there in the end. Port Adelaide run out the winners in the final term after three very hotly contested quarters. Port Adelaide running out 25-point winners in the end. 49-93 to 9-14-68. So reverse of scorelines in this one, and Port Adelaide take it quite comfortably in that final quarter. Melbourne just running out of legs towards the end of the game. But, from how the game was being played, very hotly contested game through 3 quarters. I think the 4th quarter could have gone either way, could have run out to Port Adelaide, definitely also could have run out to Melbourne. So I don't think there's much to be really critical of there from a game point of view. I think the ball just started bouncing Port Adelaide's way a bit more in the final quarter. What I can be critical of for Melbourne is their lack of intent in the final quarter. When the final quarter started, they looked like a team who were just trying to hold out possession, trying to pick their spot. And Port Adelaide, when they had the ball, a lot more direct, a lot more effective in the final quarter in this one. Melbourne, their spot picking led to turnovers, led to run out goals for the Power. Clumsy free kicks also led to goals for Port Adelaide in the final quarter, as Melbourne drop another one, and it looks like their season could nearly be over. They're down on 5 wins and they're in 15th. Port Adelaide suddenly jump that queue. They go up to 11th, although 2 games outside of the top 8. So player of the game in this one, really no surprises for this one. Port keeping Port still in the mix. Player of the game in this one, no surprises, Mitch Georgiades of Port Adelaide. 124 AFL fantasy, 7 goals, 4 final scoreline for him, 18 touches, 16 kicks, 2 handballs, 10 marks for Mitch Georgiades, getting Port over the line with that 7-goal performance there for the Power. And our final game of the round is between West Coast and Carlton. This was a double-header week at Optus Stadium, so 2 games at Optus Stadium, with North obviously being the home team against Fremantle. West Coast, the more traditional home side, against the Blues. West Coast finishing up this one 7-10-52, Carlton 12-14-86. There was a stage there in the second quarter where this game looked like it was going to be an absolute massacre. It was 9-59 at near the end of the second quarter. West Coast, though, held their nerve, come back into it, finished the half 3-4 to 10-8, and then the scoring really falls away for both sides. West Coast actually winning the second half in the end, 4-goal half to 2-goal half. So scoring really falls away for Carlton in that second half. If West Coast could have just done a little bit more in the first half, I think they could have flipped the game on its head a little bit more. But unfortunately, that's how it goes in footy. Grindy second half sees the Blues pick up the win in this one. My player of the match is going to be Shearer of Carlton, Adam Shearer of Carlton. 115 AFL fantasy, 28 touches, 15 kicks, 13 handballs, 9 marks and 5 tackles. So a really good all-round display there by Adam Shearer. Now it is time we look ahead to what we have in store for round 15. Again, it's another short, condensed week with only 7 games. Again, we have 4 teams on the bye. Those are Adelaide, Hawthorn, Melbourne and West Coast. So we start on Thursday night. Fremantle versus Essendon. Fremantle really should win this one at home. Essendon running out of legs, running out of bodies very quickly. It's the first game of the round. Going to give a margin. Fremantle win this one by 60. Second game, the real big one, the real main event for the round. Geelong versus Brisbane at the Cattery. Really interesting contest this is going to be. Geelong at home, very strong. Brisbane, little loss after the loss to GWS. So they had the loss to Adelaide 2 weeks ago. Losing to Adelaide 2 weeks ago, losing to GWS last week. I think the only difference is that being down at the Cattery gives Geelong the advantage. I take the Cats in that one. Our 3 games on Saturday we have Carlton versus North Melbourne. This one I think definitely goes the way of the Blues. Blues playing really good football at the moment, apart from that real grindy second half against West Coast. So taking Carlton in that one. Then at 3:45, the true afternoon game on Saturday between Port Adelaide and Sydney at the Adelaide Oval. This one, I think, maybe going to be tough to call. I think it might just go the way of the Swans. This one, Port Adelaide showed a big statement win last week. I think it's Sydney's turn to get a statement win on the board this week, even though they are the away team travelling to Adelaide. I think they've got Port's number. Saturday night, we have Collingwood versus St Kilda. Only really one winner in this one. It's going to be Collingwood. St Kilda looking all kinds of lost at the moment. Somebody adopt that lost puppy that is St Kilda and give them a home, because they are wandering the streets and searching for a place to call home. Just to paraphrase one of my favourite songs, Give It Up by Midtown. But Collingwood easy winners in that one. 2 games on the Sunday. Another real cracker here at GWS Energy Stadium, West Sydney Stadium. GWS versus Gold Coast. This is one I think the Gold Coast could go down and pull out a win there. I'm going to take Gold Coast in that one. I think come off the bye, Gold Coast are a really, really strong side against GWS. Even though GWS probably at home probably do have the upper hand, I think if I'm taking a roughie this week, it's going to be Gold Coast beating GWS at GWS. And our final game for round 15 is Western Bulldogs versus Richmond. And I think that one definitely goes the way of Western Bulldogs. Richmond, real downturn in form from them last time they played. So I don't expect them to come up as much as they did in the early parts of the year. In the second half, I think the grind's starting to get to them. On those young players that they've got, they're going to be a great team for years to come. Don't get me wrong, but I think the grind of the season is starting to take hold on them. Doggies, much more experienced bodies there. They take this one on Sunday. So Sunday, real interesting weekend on Sunday. We have a 12:40 and a 2:50 start. So no late game on Sunday this week. So to run down my round 15 predictions again, it is Fremantle beating Essendon by 60. Then Geelong at the Cattery beating Brisbane, Carlton beating North Melbourne, Sydney going the outside chance to beat Port Adelaide, Collingwood running all over St Kilda, Gold Coast my roughie to beat GWS, and Western Bulldogs to run all over Richmond. And again, the teams on the bye: Adelaide, Hawthorn, Melbourne, and West Coast. So that is round 14 and round 15 from me. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next week.